Hawkeye's Dracula Mihawk and Kaido the Beast, two of the only characters in One Piece to hold titles of the world's strongest. Yo, what's going on guys? Now as a Mihawk dick rider you all know and love, many of you probably think I'll spend this entire video talking about why the world's strongest swordsman would absolutely annihilate Kaido. And while I do think Mihawk's victory is possible, the two's statements, feats, and roles in the story offer much more insight. So with that, let's get to it. Alright y'all, this might come as a surprise from the supposed #1 Mihawk fan, but any statement regarding Mihawk is next to nothing when compared to Kaido. In a one-on-one fight, always bet on Kaido. Boom, that's it, debate over, end the video. World's strongest creature kinda just sounds like he's the most powerful character after Whitebeard's death. Similar to how I believe it's difficult to get around the world's strongest swordsman title in the battle between Mihawk and Shanks, the world's strongest creature title is going to be exceedingly difficult to get around in this fight as well. That being said, there are a few factors discrediting Kaido's title in my opinion. For example, it seems for some characters, mainly Whitebeard, even as an old sick man, he continued to hold the title of world's strongest, something that seems unlikely by the time of Marineford. It seems he only holds that title due to his strength in his prime and the respect many people continue to hold for him. Additionally, even if we're talking about a prime beard, you can make an argument that his title doesn't necessarily mean he was the world's strongest. Just like Whitebeard, we're directly told that there are characters who can stand up to Kaido, that being obviously Whitebeard himself, but also Roger, Zebek, Shanks, and Odin. This kind of goes to show that even if Kaido does have the title of strongest, it doesn't necessarily mean there aren't characters that can hold their own against him. Now I know what you're thinking.
Mihawk isn't up there, you fucking idiot. Stop talking about One Piece or anime ever again.
So this doesn't really make sense for two reasons. One, we don't even know if Kaido and Mihawk have ever even seen each other, especially as Mihawk tends to act secluded doing his own thing. And two, while I do think the characters Kaido listed can stand up to him, many other characters stronger or at a similar level to the Beast like Shiki and Big Mom were also not up there. So it's clear this list isn't completely reliable. With that being said, Kaido's statements are still absolutely better than Mihawk's, who is only known as the world's strongest swordsman and a rival to Shanks. However, it is worth noting that Kaido's statements, while essentially true, may not necessarily mean that Yonko level combatants like Mihawk can't stand up to him. Let's talk about feats though, somewhere I surprisingly think both characters excel in, and yes I said both. Once again, Kaido absolutely shines here. A pirate who lived through 10,000 kinds of torture and 40 different death sentences, he's one of the most seasoned and durable fighters in the history of One Piece. He fought evenly with Big Mom without even using his hybrid form and survived an altercation with the red-haired pirates, which in my opinion was the strongest active crew at the time. It was clear that before Big Mom was separated and Luffy awakened his advanced Conqueror's Haki, the two Yonko would have annihilated the rooftop combatants. What's there to say about Kaido that hasn't already been said? Throughout the entire raid he fought the Scabbards, Luffy, Zoro, Law, Kid, Killer, Yamato, and Momonosuke, all while holding up Onigashima. It still took 2 power-ups for Luffy to finally take down the Yonko. In comparison, when you look on the surface, Mihawk doesn't have many feats to speak of. I mean, clashing with Vista and Crocodile ain't gonna give the guy any awards. However, there are a few notable things to say about the character in regards to feats. Before we get to that though, let's disprove all the anti-feats Mihawk has, because yes, he did clash with Vista and Crocodile, but in no way does this make him Vista or pre-timeskip Crocodile level. I will never in my life understand the argument that clashing with a character makes one equal to another. There are plenty of examples of characters of vastly differing levels of strength clashing, and I know for a fact no one would argue these characters are of equal strength. In regards to Mihawk versus opponents vastly differing in strength from him, you would think after the weapon he chose to use in his initial fight with Zoro, as well as the literal quote that he doesn't go all out on mere rabbits, it's clear the guy doesn't take fights against people far weaker than him incredibly seriously. Looking at Marineford, what opponent besides Whitebeard was a genuine threat for Mihawk? Like maybe Marco and Jozu if you really want to argue it. And he did get a moment against Jozu where Jozu, one of the most durable characters in the series, used his devil fruit power and significant effort to stop an air slash from Mihawk that was coming from all across of Marineford. The funny thing is, even though he's literally known as Diamond Jozu, one of the most durable characters ever, many people were still surprised he stopped Mihawk's attacks. The last anti-feat in regards to Mihawk I'd like to bring up is the fact that he wanted to test the distance between him and Whitebeard in terms of strength. Many argue, as this is an old sick Whitebeard, the fact that Mihawk wanted to test the difference proves he's not that strong. I'd use the same argument that Whitebeard still held the title of world's strongest man even though he most likely wasn't at the time. Mihawk most likely only knows Whitebeard from his title and reputation, and considering who Whitebeard is, it's not surprising to think that Mihawk would consider himself inferior to Newgate. Basically, I think if you want to take what Mihawk's saying at face value, you probably should also take the world's strongest man title at face value as well, so then old sick Whitebeard would be stronger than Kaido anyway, making the entire argument irrelevant to this debate. Looking at Mihawk's actual feats now, not only has he reached the level of world's strongest swordsman, but he wields Yoru, the world's strongest blade, and as for all we know, the strongest weapon in the series after the ancient weapons. Now I'll just remind you how much strength and Haki mastery it took Zoro to wield a blade like Enma, as well as the insane buff he received from utilizing the blade. Now when we look at Yoru, a blade that's not only a whole Meito to a grade higher than Enma, but also the strongest in the world. Holy shit! Mihawk must be insanely powerful to wield it, and must have gotten insanely more powerful from wielding it. His feats don't stop there though, as he's one of the 2 known characters to have created a black blade. Now we don't exactly know how these black blades are created, besides the fact that they are related to one's armament hockey usage. I would highly doubt this has to do with just experience, as older characters like Whitebeard never received the coveted blade. My best guess is that's related to one's hockey mastery, but it's completely headcanon. Still, for him to be one of the 2 only characters to receive this blade is absolutely insane and shouldn't be downplayed. Now Mihawk does have his legendary duels with Shanks, which were even noted by Whitebeard. However, I would be willing to bet that at the point in time these 2 were dueling, neither were quite at the strength of characters like Kaido or Big Mom. Before I finish this section, I do want to bring up something in regards to Kaido. If both Kaido and Luffy at Gear 5th fought at 100%, it could honestly go either way, and it's an extreme diff on both sides. I am so tired of hearing these arguments that Kaido was at a great disadvantage when fighting Luffy. Sure, Kaido had to deal with fighting a lot of people, but Luffy was at the disadvantage of having to fight Kaido and Big Mom when the 2 were just astronomically stronger than him. Luffy got defeated multiple times, one of them while he was literally being held down by a CP0 agent, and don't pretend Luffy was full power once he went Gear 5th, as that shit tired him out almost immediately. It's clear neither of them were at 100%, so if the 2 were to fight at full strength the entire time, I believe the fight would be pretty close, if not maybe in Luffy's favor, as he did end up beating Kaido. It's arguable, and I'll leave it at that. Going into each character's roles in the story, both are clearly impressive, Kaido acting as the final boss for the first portion of the New World, and Mihawk acting as a final boss for Zoro in general. Whether you like it or not, this requires both of these characters to be 2 of the strongest of all time, Kaido being Luffy's chance to reach Yonko level, and Mihawk being Zoro's chance to not only reach the same feat, but also become the strongest swordsman in the world. Now this next portion could be considered as headcanon if you want, or bias, or whatever you want to call it, but I believe it's worth noting how strong I think Zoro will become by the end of the series. While he obviously will overcome Mihawk by then, I think he'll also surpass Prime Rayleigh. From the get-go, we've seen the comparisons between the Roger and Straw Hat Pirates. I'm of the belief that by the end of the series, the monster trio of the Straw Hats will become even stronger than the strongest trio of the Roger Pirates, Roger, Rayleigh, and Gaban. The thing is, many already believe Prime Rayleigh is more powerful than Kaido, and I don't think it's the most far-fetched thing to say that the 2 are in similar tiers of strength. Considering that I think Zoro will surpass his version of Prime Rayleigh when he finally defeats Mihawk, and the fact that the Dark King could 100% hold his own against Kaido, I don't think it's the craziest statement in the world to say that Zoro could possibly surpass Kaido by the end of the series. To put a full stop in that section, if it takes beating Mihawk for Zoro to, in my opinion, surpass Rayleigh, Kaido, and Mihawk himself, it's fair to put all 3 of these characters at a relatively similar level of power. Now, who's genuinely the most powerful between Kaido and Mihawk? A couple things to preface. No matter which character I choose, I believe there are valid arguments going either way, and these 2 are most likely of relative strength to one another. With that, I got my boy Kaido, king of the Nah, I got Mihawk winning this. If Kaido and Big Mom were the final bosses of the final arc, I'd probably have them as the 2 strongest characters alive, but considering their defeat and the way they were defeated, the fact that shonen manga generally tends to progress in strength, I believe the younger Yonko level combatants have surpassed them at this point, so like Mihawk, I would consider characters such as Dragon, Shanks, Luffy, maybe a Kaido, and even Blackbeard to all be of greater strength to them. If Mihawk didn't have his strength connection to Shanks, I'd be far more comfortable putting him below Kaido, but in case you're wondering where I'd go in that debate, click on this video for my thoughts on who would win in a fight between the 2 strongest swordsmen alive, and I will see y'all later.